Okay, hello everybody. I hope you can see that already. Yeah, you can see my screen already. Okay, one quick check. Is it big enough to read? Yeah, probably, right? Can you read it up there? Is it big enough? Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. A lot of people. I'm super happy to be on stage again. Same procedure as every year, I guess. This time I'm not alone. I brought Samina with me. Yeah, it was a little bit on short notice, but I'm very happy that it worked out. Yeah, we are going to show you together today why vibe coding is kind of not the thing that we should probably do in the future, but yeah, you all probably know that already. But I think nevertheless we should kind of use these new tools and new possibilities that AI brought to us to do real software engineering with it. And today we want to explore a bit how that might be possible and how that also might change the way product managers and developers will work together. Yeah, my name is Benedikt. I'm doing software development for a long time now at multiple companies. A lot of you maybe know me. I see a lot of older colleagues of mine. Super happy for you to be here. And yeah, this is not about me, it's about the topic. So yeah, I'm being the developer today, and I brought Samina with me.
Yes, hello. I'm the product part today. So I'm a product manager mainly for machine learning systems, and we work together at Otto. So.
Yeah, and today I think you brought a story with us, right?
I did something, yeah.
So,
user story.
Yeah, so we have this page, right? Maybe you can explain what we are doing.
I'm not sure who attended our other session. So I wrote a user story because on this product detail page, product description is missing. So there was no text about what flowers and so on. So I created that user story. Not sure if.
Oh yeah, I wanted to show the user story, right?
Yeah.
I have no slides, by the way, right? So this is purely.
That's my slides, yeah.
Yeah, that's your slides, yeah.
Product dev.
So this is the user story she brought. She gave me to implement.
So yeah, it's kind of your feedback was like
it was great.
A little bit details are missing and so on. So a lot of questions, and in the end.
I think we worked on it a bit, yeah.
We worked on it, and I iterated the user story with AI support, and now that's the enhanced user story.
You don't need to read that, by the way.
With just more context and so on, and details about it, and user experience, what I really want to do now. So that's my handoff to you here. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, see you probably later when I'm done.
I will go to my stakeholder meeting now.
Yeah, okay.
And then I come back and see
you
what you
never
have
again.
done. Yeah.
I don't know when I've seen my product manager the last time. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, a little bit of role play here. I think you will come back for the review, right? Okay. So we want to implement this user story now together. Actually, we want the AI let it implement for us because why should I do that? I mean, I have better things to do. And to kind of create a little bit of more chance that this will go the right way, we used a specialized Claude code configuration before to enhance the user story, as you said, right? We kind of we let it already look into the code, into Confluence documentation, into our architecture documentation, and to write a more comprehensive user story. And we will not show, or I will not show you today how that was done. Just it is possible, and then you can review it. And this is, for now, the most important thing that you need to know. And I think it's also a very valuable thing to do that. You might have heard of SpecKit or BAML or not BMAT or any of these like frameworks, they called it, for agentic development, and they always build a spec first, and this is kind of like the idea here to create a more detailed spec based off the user story. And yeah, I don't really like these frameworks, by the way. They are kind of like, they force me into a workflow that's not mine, or that's not the one of our team. So I just like the ideas, and then I I take the ideas and put it into our own team's workflow. Yeah, and that's what we did. And as a next step, we kind of took the user story and did a planning, right? Usually what you do after refinement meeting, after planning one, if you're doing Scrum by the book, then you kind of do a planning meeting where you take the user story and make smaller tasks out of it. And I also did that beforehand. Sorry about that. A little bit, the time is too short to do all of that as a live demo, but I prepared that as well. So what you can see here, and you don't need to read it, it's just for demonstration sakes, is kind of the output of another kind of configuration of my Claude Code instance, which is like very much focused and configured to do planning meetings. It took the product description and kind of created the tasks out of it. If you read it a little bit, you will realize that there are like tasks and there are also like subtasks. So what you will notice is probably that this is like very detailed. Usually developers are not writing these detailed tasks when they are doing a planning meeting, because they will do the very detailed ones just when they are developing, right? We don't need to write them down. It's like create a class, right? Who does that? But for the AI, it's kind of nice to have that. And that's why this configuration of mine is doing tasks and subtasks, also kind of estimating those and creating like a dependency, which one to do first and so on. But for now, we can imagine that for this user story, it created like 5 tasks here or something. And what we want to do now is we want to kick off the implementation of those tasks. So I'm not going to do that myself. I have as I had for the previous meetings, I now have a specifically configured agent for the coding part. And that is also the agent that we are going to look into more detail today. Because I was talking about why wipe coding fails, today up until now we haven't done any coding at all, right? We only did stuff that we also usually do, which is not coding, and also like probably 80% of the stuff that we as developers are doing, because we are not often coding. But as people are talking about vibe coding, I thought that we will dig into the vibe coding specific agent configuration today. So yeah, what I did here for that is I opened IntelliJ. This is my my project here, where we have the product detail page in it, and there's also like a it's Kotlin project. It's fairly old already. It's around 20,000 lines of code, so it's not very small. It's like 5 to 6 years old. So also some people could say it's legacy already. But you can see a few attributes here on the product, on our Blumenstrauß, and the description is missing. That's what we want to add here. You might already guess, if you have looked into the package structure, that we are kind of doing domain-driven design here and so on. And yeah, I will go a little bit more into the details of that during the implementation phase, but let's kick it off first so that our minion is starting to work, right? So I'm opening Claude here. Claude Code is my agent of choice. You can do it with any other agent as well. And I have a custom command so that I don't need to write my whole prompt in there, because I'm like I'm a developer, I'm lazy. I wrote the prompt once and saved it somewhere, and I kick it off now. Hopefully the internet is working. This is the magic moment. Okay, it's working, fine, great. Okay, so our agent is going to run here, and it is going to do that the rest of the time, while I'm showing you around how I configured this agent and what is actually happening there on the side. That's why I don't have any slides, because back and forth is kind of hard with slides and live coding, and it's also already quite hard to follow this and what I'm telling you. But what you will see here is it started off with some weirdly like purplish thing here called workflow orchestrator. And that is the first thing that we might want to talk about, is that I configured this Claude Code instance for my specific workflow. And to do that, I built a workflow sub-agent, which is a feature of Claude Code, but you could use any other like agent for that as well. They have other implementation details, like how they do that, but in Claude Code, it's done with a sub-agent. And a sub-agent has a name, a description, some tools that it's allowed to use. So it's allowed to read files, to search for files, and also to write to-dos and so on. And yeah, it has a color, purple, that is what we're seeing, and it inherits the model from my current model here, which you can see there in the terminal. I'm using Haiku here, so a very small but very fast model. And I gave this agent a purpose. And it's a very long one, right? So you can see here, I didn't write that myself. I told it what I want this agent to do, and the main thing that I want this agent to do, and that is the interesting part here, is that I want to follow it, give me a second, a very specific process. So I wanted to do the setup of this implementation first by putting the task into in progress, and then it should research anything in the documentation, in the existing code, in talking to an architect to figure out how to implement this the right way, not the wipe-coded way. Then I'm telling it to actually implement a test first, a red test, because we are doing test-driven development. It is using another different agent to kind of help what is a good test, how should a test look like, how are the other tests in this repository are looking like. And yeah, then it will go on with what we usually do, like red-green refactor. It will document that it implemented this task. And in the end, it will do some kind of like a small retrospective, like what was good in the session, what was bad in the session, where could I as an agent could have done something faster, or yeah. But like we usually do that as a developer as well, right? At the end of the sprint, we kind of come together and figure out what could have been better. Yeah, so this is actually what is happening here workflow-wise. And on the right, you can already see that that the workflow orchestrator answered with the phases, and Claude Code started to do the research phase here. So it first set the status to in progress. That is this line here. So we can already look in the test JSON and see that this thing is in progress now. Great. It's working on it. And it started the research phase with all the sub-agents for the research in parallel. So let's talk a little bit more about sub-agents and why I'm using sub-agents for that. As you already saw, like the sub-agents have like this nice header, and they are kind of like you can run them in parallel. It's quite nice. So you can parallelize things with it. But the most important things about sub-agent is what you can actually see here now. This one is already done, this architecture advisor, and it used around 53,000 tokens to do the architecture advisory. So it returned not 53,000 tokens, but just a smaller answer, right? So the answer of the advisory. That's like we humans do as well, right? We have a long conversation with our architect, a very, very long one, right? You know architects. And then in the end, it's just like a small thing that, okay, this is something that we need to do. And that is the answer of this sub-agent. So our main agent, where we kicked off this process, is not polluting its context window with stuff that's not relevant, right? And that is a crucial part here, which you might have already heard is referred to as context engineering. So we try to put the right stuff into the context window, and we try to not put too much in the context window, and we try to put it in there at the moment it is necessary, not 300 lines before, so that the agent actually knows it when it needs it. And one crucial part of these sub-agents is actually to reduce the context by handing it off to a sub-agent with its own context window. And once this agent is done, this context is gone. We can actually, and let me demonstrate that, see the context window in Claude if we just do context. Context. We can do that in other tools as well, like their client, for example, has a very good visualization of the context. And yeah, you can see here that just my initial context window is already kind of full with stuff, right? There's the system prompt of the agent. There are the tools, the descriptions of how to use the tools. So these agents need to interact with files, need to search for files, edit files. We were talking about the tools earlier here. And they need to be described, because if I send an LLM a question like, please tell me what I need to do next, then it needs the information that it can answer with, use this tool, and this is how you use this tool. And then the agent will kind of just evaluate the answer and execute a program, right? So that's how the LLM is actually able to interact with the computer. But we need to describe those, and this is also already in the context. The MCP servers are also in the context. As you can see here, I have a JetBrains MCP server, which I'm using, and I will talk a little bit about that later. And I also have like a memory here already of around 10,000 tokens with like kind of like a long-term general instructions memory. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff already in there, and at a certain point, this agent here will probably make a make a pause. And once it does, we can kind of look into the context, how full it is for this agent. Yeah, I hope it is doing that. Yeah, okay. To quick recap here, we are at the process already where it writes the test. So you can see here it used the quality assurance expert to ask what is a good test, how to write this test, and so on. And then it started to write the test here. It created a new file, and then it created another new file, it created another new file, and yeah, now it verifies that the test is failing before starting the implementation. That kind of sounds sensible. It starts to kind of use a specific Java version here. I told it to do that because this project is not using the latest one. I will show you in a second how it is doing, how it is knowing about that. This is the long-term memory part of the context. But first, let's talk a little bit more about this MCP server of JetBrains. So you can see here it is using the JetBrains MCP server and not the probably usual way of editing files. So it has an internal tool to edit files. But the problem with JetBrains is, you probably know that if you're a JetBrains user, it is working on a cached version of your file system. So if you change something on the file system, the IDE doesn't recognize that. You need to refresh it all the time. And this is kind of annoying if the agent is working in the file and you need to refresh all the time in your IDE. And this is one great feature of this MCP server, that JetBrains actually knows now that the file changed and you don't need to synchronize all the time. But that is not the important part. The important part is that, and we can look into that here, that usually the agent only has language knowledge, right? Like text. It cannot do refactorings. It doesn't have a symbolic database, anything where you do like a rename refactoring and JetBrains is editing it everywhere this method is being used. This is something that Claude Code cannot do. But if you use this MCP server here, let's look into the tools, you can see that there are some tools here available that extend the default configuration that can help you, for example, do a rename refactoring. So Claude Code is now able to use a rename refactoring action of IntelliJ, which you as a developer would usually do when you refactor something. Or it can get symbolic information about some symbol of the code because it can access the cache of IntelliJ, the index. That's why I really like this MCP server, and I usually configure it for my coding agents. Yeah, so let's see how this goes. Okay, so the green phase is also already over for the first set of tasks, and we are starting here with the refactoring. So there's also a refactoring advisor, kind of telling after the fact, after the implementation, there's stuff that you could have done better. There's another thing why the sub-agents are great. If I code the stuff, and then I need to do the review and refactoring of it, I'm probably like, yeah, this is great. I don't need to change anything, right? Awesome. And the sub-agent is kind of like a new person, right? A new context, fresh eyes, and it will kind of give a different view on the implementation after the fact and say, well, maybe we can do something else. And then there is changes after that, as you can see here. Not using the MCP server of JetBrains though. So here we can see the non-determinism. Like not very great. Need to refresh here somehow. Yeah, so it kind of forgot about using the MCP server. That's kind of not very good, but that happens. But it's not that bad though. Yeah, let me check the time. I have no idea. Oh, okay, 20 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So I told you earlier that it knows to use the Java version 21 something something. What does it mean? Like, how does it know that? And there's a different type of thing coming in that you can use to configure your Claude code. So one thing that we talked about were sub-agents. The other thing was MCP servers. And we also talked about the commands already. I kind of skipped them because they are quite easy. It's just like a saved prompt. The AI doesn't really look into that on its own or something. It's just basically what you prompt, you save it somewhere, and then you can kind of use it as a command. Not super interesting, but quite helpful. But what is actually interesting is this Claude MD file. Other agents call it like agents MD or GitHub Copilot instructions file or whatever, cursor rules. This is something where you can, and this is this long-term memory part here, this memory thing. You can also see it down here. It loads some files here in the memory, the Claude MD here. You can see that. There's also other files. We can talk about why it is loading this as well. But it automatically, the magic is that it automatically loads this Claude MD file into every prompt, into every agent you start. So if I start a new agent here with Claude, it is automatically loading the context of the Claude MD file into your context, and that is super helpful because you can use that to kind of do overarching configuration, overarching memory there that you always want to have in this configuration. For example, you can tell it which MCP servers are available to use. You can say that MCP server, JetBrains MCP server is mandatory, please use that. You can talk about the sub-agents, which sub-agents are available. I mean, you don't write this file yourself, right? You kind of instructed what you wanted to say, and then you, over time, add to it, and you figure out what might needs to go in there so that it follows your idea of good software engineering practices. You probably will also want to write a lot of information on which CLI tools are available on your machine. So we talked about context engineering. You see MCP tools are already like, and it's one MCP tool, right? I have only one, covering like 8% of my whole context. So you can imagine if I add 10 MCP tools here, my context is already full with only the configuration of the MCP servers, which doesn't do anything but configuring the tools. So I tend to only use MCP servers if it's really, really, really necessary. And everything else I'm doing with the available CLI tools, like GitHub CLI, for example, or GitLab CLI, or whatever. Mongo, you don't need a MongoDB MCP server. Like, why would you need that? You can just use Mongo SH, and the agent can do that as well. So I'm telling it here that there are a lot of CLI tools available, and it's allowed to use these if it thinks that this is like a good way to do something at the moment. Let's go over here, what is happening. Okay, it is, refactoring is done, now it's reviewing. Okay. So it is doing something there, and we will look into the context in a minute. But yeah, this file is huge. I will share it later. But here you can see that there's actually project-specific commands as well, and here you can see the stuff with the Java version. So that's why it probably knows that it needs to use this Java version. Yeah. Then what you can also see here, and this is something that might be interesting to talk about. I can also reference other files, right? So these are loaded automatically, which we saw here. It automatically loads the README and the package.json because I just told it here to do that. So you can extend this file as well. Don't need to put everything into one file. And what is also pretty interesting, that this Claude MD and all the configuration is kind of, how do you call that? You can put this file into other folders, and then it also loads the file automatically when it works inside this folder. So if you have some specific information for testing, you can put a Claude MD file into your test folder, and then it will kind of load that automatically into the context once it's working in the test context, in the test folder, or with something in the test folder. So that's, you can manage a little bit and the context with that as well, right? Because you don't want to load everything all the time in the beginning, otherwise your context is full with only memory, but you can manage it with having different files and kind of telling it when to load these files. Yeah, one more thing before we look into the context is that what you can actually or what you do, so CloudMD is loaded automatically, but sometimes you don't want to load everything automatically. You want it to kind of have access to, for example, documentation, but only load that when it's kind of necessary. So that is also a thing that you can do. So I wrote a lot of documentation here, not by myself. I used the documentation agent for that, but it wrote a lot of architecture decision records, for example. So now you might ask, like, how can it write a good architecture decision record? It can't, because it doesn't know like why the decision was made. But this is helpful memory, because it will guide it when trying to implement something that, this team decided to do self-contained system architecture, or this team decided to use Quarkus over something else. So this is basically just a shortcut so that the agent doesn't need to iterate on all the specific files very often, but it can just simply kind of go in here and kind of pick up different information regarding to this ticket and load it into its context when it thinks that is necessary. This is something, for example, what the documentation agent, let's go in the beginning. This documentation researcher agent is actually researching through all the documentation here in this project if there's some necessary information that is helpful for this particular task that we are going to implement. Okay, as the implementation is done, did it already commit as well? Yeah, it also already committed. I think in terms of, we will not implement the whole story yet, right? But we can look into what actually has happened now, and then we can do like a review with our product manager. But let's first look into the context window once more, that we can now see what happened here. And you will see that, yeah, we are kind of full now. So there's a lot of stuff that, because it iterates, right? It iterates, and all of that stuff that happened here is now filled in the context window. And when we are implementing our next task now, let's look into the tasks JSON here again. We will probably need to work on the next task ID. Yeah, we started with this one, and yeah, now we need to do the other one. And before we do that, it might be helpful to kind of clear the context, right? Because if we don't, then we will overflow. And overflowing is one last topic that we can look into technically. Then we will do a review and finish it up. So overflowing is kind of interesting, because what do you do when it overflows, right? Question, what do you do? So the agent is just creating a new context window, completely fresh one. So it's basically just saying, okay, I forgot everything, let's start with a new one, and loads the CloudMD and the configuration in there, like when we kind of open a new Claude instance. So yeah, that's not really helpful if you're in the middle of an implementation to kind of lose every idea that you had before. So what they do is they introduce something which they call compaction. So they try to take all of the context that has already been produced, compact it into a summary, and then start the new context window with the relevant information of the context that it was there before. But here's the critical thing, like, what is relevant? Like, how do you know what is relevant to your next task? That is like super, super hard. That's why this feature is not working very well. It was very, very, very bad like a month ago, and now it's kind of getting better. They reserved a little bit of place in the existing context so that they have place to kind of do the compaction well. If they don't have, if you don't have any free space, you cannot really do a compaction, because you don't have any free space to do a compaction. So yeah, they reserved a spot here for the compaction. What they do is they compact. You can also do that manually. So you can say compact, and they say, we are going to work on the next task next. So please only remove information during compaction that is not relevant for the next task. So we can kind of guide it to do the compaction, and it is nowadays a little smarter that so Claude Code creates an internal to-do list, so it knows what its internal next steps are, and it kind of uses those internal next steps for their automatic compaction, because once you reach this point, it will automatically compact the conversation. And then this is like for you to let it run longer without you interfering. But yeah, as we are doing it in a more together way here at the moment, I am doing the compaction now, and then I can kick off the next task. But this is not what we are going to do. So, okay, we can see it already, nice. Let's look into the context window again. We can see that it compacted it into a much smaller amount of tokens here, 13,000 tokens. Before it was much more, we can see it sadly. Cannot scroll anymore because it compacted all of it. I can do Control O. Yeah, but this is like very verbose now. Yeah, that's not really helpful. Okay. Yeah, it's too verbose. Yeah, no way to find that. Okay. I think there's also a way to. Yeah, this control always kind of a way to also be able to look into the agents. What is the sub-agent doing? What was the prompt to the sub-agent? How did the sub-agent answer and so on? So you can have like a lot of observability into what is happening as well. But anyways, let's look into the result, why I feel that this might be good code, and hopefully it is. Otherwise, this would be a very shameful thing. Okay, so it did a commit. The first thing that we can see is that it actually did a quite decent commit here. I would say it's like way too long, and my commits are usually way shorter. Mine are kind of like reset something, like fuck it, guys. Okay, but this is kind of like nice that it kind of tries to create a good commit message. We can also kind of have more instructions for it, how to write good commit messages the way we think good commit messages look like. But I didn't really do that. That's why it did a little bit more here than we probably feel is necessary. Okay, what did it do? The first subtask, and it's actually a small one, but for the demo it's kind of nice. What it did is created a value object for us. So first step here, value object, and we can look into the value object here, and this is the value object that that was built. And you might criticize something here, which is totally fine to do. So there's German in there. Why the heck is there German in there? So this is because we are using German in this project for our ubiquitous language. It picked up on that. It is doing the sanitization first before doing the validation, which I find quite nice because otherwise, the not blank stuff or the length stuff after the sanitization, the string may be shorter or like altered. That's why it's probably good to do it afterwards. But it's not a lot of code, right? But we don't want to vibe code like 300 classes. We want to do real software engineering. So I quite like it. So we have also very domain-specific exceptions here. You can look into those. They are implemented quite decent. Also, vererben, I don't know the English word, sorry, from the product exception here. So yeah, for me it's kind of okay. And also a nice thing, it wrote a test as well. So unit test here, where it just can create like a valid description. It's not allowed to be empty. It's not allowed to be longer than 500 characters. It tests the sanitization here, also even with a script alert, if it kind of gets it out of there. HTML entities should be decoded, also quite nice test, because we are expecting the sanitization. Okay, now it probably gets a little bit like esoteric in terms of testing. But yeah, this is kind of duplicating what we did before. But okay, yeah, it's testing if the length is after the sanitization. Okay, yeah, maybe we wouldn't have done that ourselves, but also not too bad. I mean, we are still allowed to edit the code, right? We don't need to take all of that the way it wrote it. But yeah, as a demonstration, it also is able to write quite decent tests. And I mean, I would have probably forgotten 2 or 3 of those, and maybe now I can delete 2 or 3 of those because it's too many. But in the end, we will end up with tests. I didn't need to write them, and they are quite nice. And we started with writing the tests, so also quite nice, I would say. Okay, one last thing. I promised you that it is also doing a retrospective, and that is kind of interesting because the retrospective part should be an episode here. No, it didn't. Oh, it hasn't done that yet. Okay, sorry. I think you didn't create an episode yet. Look into your workflow. Can you do that, please? Okay. I'm nice. I'm always nice. I'm always nice. Yeah. But there is a study, though, that if you are really asshole to it, it gets better results. So, yeah. And I think that says something about humanity as well. So maybe we shouldn't laugh that hard about it. But yeah, it's actually very sad. Yeah. Anyways, because we don't have that much time, I think it will not be able to do that. But what I wanted to do is to do a retrospective. I created a template here, what a retrospective would look like. And you all know what a retrospective is, but it will do that now and fill this template. So there is actually a part where it fills in the 4 likes, for example. Yeah, I liked, I learned, I lagged, and I longed for, and will probably say, well, it wasn't that clear that I need to use this specific Java version, and I needed to iterate on that few times until I got it. That could be one. Did it? Oh, okay, now it wrote it perfectly. So I was wrong, it was very fast, sorry. Let's see what it says. What could I've improved? Yeah, Java version management. Yeah, I know that because I have done the demo a lot. So it kind of says, yeah, this is not really clear at the moment. The taskmaster integration kind of also not working very well. And also I forgot to create this episode, so it's quite also not very good, right? So maybe we should improve our current configuration of the agent so that I do not forget that next time. So you can imagine what happens with it. I code a lot of times with the agent. Over time, it will create a lot of episode files, and I can have a different agent, a retrospective agent, kind of analyze the retrospective files, the episodes, and then propose changes to my configuration, to my context, to make it better for the next time, to kind of figure out what is working not that good. Yeah, but now I think it's time to do a product review because I mean I implemented the feature now, but yeah, let's see what our product manager is saying about that. Hi.
That was fast. You can show me something already?
Yeah, I can show you something.
Show
so
me,
it's done. Yeah, it's done. Okay, yeah. Here you can see the description.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So it was really what I expected. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, but I have to tell you something.
Okay. What is happening?
I had a stakeholder meeting.
Oh.
And they don't want it.
What? Like, why did we even do that?
And also the user testing was not so good. But maybe it wasn't that effort, right?
No, I didn't do much, no. But we burned through, I think we burned through some money. Do we want to see how much money we spent?
do I really want to see? No.
I don't know. Like, let's see. How much money does it take? Okay, it's only $2.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, I took some time to explain all of that. That would have been like totally unnecessary.
Yeah. But thank you so much. Maybe next sprint.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk a little bit on what we could do better, right? Maybe this is good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we wanted to tell you a little bit more why vibe coding might be helpful, or this kind of coding, right? So we did that in the talk before as well. But in the talk before, we were using Lovable to build a vibe-coded version of this website, and we were iterating together on the requirements, because as you might also have seen from the story that there's a little bit more to it than what we actually implemented. So there's like rich text, for example. We didn't really look into rich text, and rich text is also not in the product story description and in the user story, because we kind of so in the other one we kind of forgot that, and yeah, that's why we iterated on a lovable prototype to figure out what the real thing is that the user wants. And in this case, probably we would have figured out that the user doesn't want that at all and already stopped and never even started with the implementation. That would be like a nice thing to do. But we started now, and let's imagine that the user wants it, and we would have prototyped something in Lovable that the user actually wants, right? Then I have the question, and that was one of the questions earlier as well, like why do we do it in Lovable and not in the real code, right? So, and that is something that I suggest, or that we probably suggest, that you as a product manager, I mean, can you kind of, if I show you a little bit how to do that, like could we do that together, right? So
maybe if you show me a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so we could vibe code it in, like real vibe code it there without the testing stuff first and without the like all the TDD and so on. Then we could figure out very quickly a real prototype, like in a branch, and deploy that already, test it with some users.
Yeah, and then you tell me the real complexity and the effort before I go to the stakeholder meeting.
Yeah, and when I start implementing it, then I can use this branch with a very bad code and kind of have an agent that kind of makes good code out of it. So we are even faster than I try to get your lovable code, which is like whatever, like not our real environment. And I could use the real code environment, and we would probably pick up edge cases that we wouldn't have picked up when we did it in lovable, right?
Yes, true, yeah.
Okay.
So it's much better if you show me how to do it in real code. So
so you are becoming the engineer a little bit now?
And you're becoming the PM?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, yeah. Okay, so yeah, okay. So our idea is that I think where this is all going is to kind of, or we think that where this is all going is to more collaboration between product management and engineering and even stakeholders, and to using these tools at the right moment for the right task, right? So prototyping, vibe coding, totally very good to do that, but do it in a way that you know this is not your production code, and we all know how this turns out with our little, how do you call it? I forgot about the word.
What?
POC. It's our POC. Yeah, okay. POC. No, but actually you can do that now. You can prototype with your real code base. You can create a branch. You can kind of hack it in there, and then you can kind of transfer that to the real code after you know that that the user really wants it and you validated it. So you probably don't need lovable or something like that. But yeah, you could kind of merge these roles more together and use vibe coding where vibe coding helps, and use real agentic software engineering where that is helpful for you. And yeah, that is what I wanted to show, or that we wanted to show you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it. I didn't mention a lot of features like skills. They are quite new, or output styles, or whatever. There's a lot more that you can do to configure those agents. But in the end, it's just a different implementation detail on how to guide them to do what you actually want them to do. And maybe for some things, skills are easier, and for other things, sub-agents are easier. But yeah, in the end, it doesn't really matter because conceptual, it's kind of the same stuff. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? There's one. I think you are getting a microphone. No more questions? That's always a bad sign, actually. Anyways, please give me feedback afterwards.
Second question.
Question. Oh, third one.
Yeah, with your instruction set, they are quite extensive.
Yeah.
And do they limit the effectiveness of your prompt because they take a lot of tokens and take the context away a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good point. So you actually really need to try out if it's too much, or you can't really say that up front, and there's no best practice yet or anything. And it's also quite hard if you have large files that when there are contradictions in it, it's kind of also not very nice, so the agent doesn't really know what to do. So you really need to try and play with it. I can't give you a certain answer, but maybe one thing that is, so I can't tell you yes, they are too large, or no, they are not. Probably they are both. But one thing that is quite interesting about this question is that Anthropic itself, they have a great YouTube video where they are talking about what is actually bad about putting too much context, if it's a prompt or whatever, like however you put too much guardrails on this agent, it gets less creative. And if there's a new model, which is better than the old model, you don't really realize that it's better because you kind of guardrailed it down to a very specific way of doing something that you will not get the benefit of the more, preferably more creative model. So this is a very, very good question, but there's sadly no answer yet. Yeah. There was another question. Yeah. I don't know how much. Okay, one more? Is it one? Maybe two more. Okay, so two more. 45 is our deadline, right? Yeah. Oh, 46. Okay. Okay.
Hey.
Thank you.
So this looks amazing, but also very hard to set up in total. And my intuition is I'm using Cursor right now.
Mm-hmm.
If this is actually good and actually works, this kind of approach, then Cursor will eventually probably just add it to their IDE, and I'll use it there, and I'll be 2 months late, but I save myself all this work. Is this the right intuition, you think, or you're curious what you think?
Maybe. So I don't have any answer for that. I mean, I need to be honest, right? But I think that Cursor is going very much for like development work, right? And the idea of Claude Code is more to be a more general purpose agent. So when you actually look into the agents that the sub-agent that Claude Code itself provides, you can see that there are only these two, and they are fairly new because they didn't want to put too much of a very how do you call that, like a very specific task into it. So they want Claude Code to be able to be used for all kinds of things. And I'm not sure if this is the better way, because when models get better, and then this might be better than having the specific Cursor version, but I don't know. But Cursor is doing great. You can do all of that with Cursor as well, so yeah. Okay, last question, 2 minutes. There was one? Ah, awesome.
Thanks for both talks. They were very interesting. One question which rise to me was how you could define all the tasks, which are now maybe tickets formed of user stories, when you have a different kind of defining the task, be it from the lovable prototype, or if you have any requirements for your agents.
I'm not sure if so you're talking about like
well, right now we are talking about tickets, and developers take tickets in order to fulfill them, and then you have the requirements.
Yeah.
And from the lovable prototype, we have requirements which are given by the prototype. But when a developer takes a ticket and wants to fulfill the requirements, it might be difficult for the developer to get all the requirements from the prototype, because it's not documented explicitly.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think Samina wants to answer that, but her microphone is off, I think. Are you on?
Hello? Ah, okay.
Yeah, now you're on.
So yeah, we showed it in the beginning of your talk. So you attended the other talk. It was a prototype, and we said, okay, we try to replace the ticket with the prototype. What we did as a handover for coding and developing was we took the prototype, also this basic user story, and we generated with AI an enhanced ticket. So that was now the one where also Bene started with this enhanced ticket. You see here the ticket. I didn't write that all. So we try to start here from scratch, and then you have all the details. So what we wanted to say in the first talk was, don't stuck to the user story alone. Try to make it with lovable visible. And then in the handover to Bene, try to use the prototype from lovable and the ticket to create a more detailed.
I mean, we could even go further, right? If we would have prototyped that in the code base in a different branch, we could have done the comparison between both the branches. It would have been already implemented in the other one, but with bad code quality, right? So with vibe coded, do not deploy that to production quality. And then you can actually do a comparison feature-wise as well, and let it kind of transfer that to a better implementation. But it's a good question, because in this, I mean, taking the prototype and figuring out what now the actual requirements are is kind of also not it's similar to this compaction issue. you don't really know what's the state before and in the prototype, but yeah, maybe this is something that we need to figure out how to do that very deterministically, so that we actually get the real requirements out of there.
Because I like the question actually, and we don't have the perfect answer to it, but we need to figure out how can we make these handovers now smoother, reduce the friction, and so that I'm not coming into back and saying, okay, that wasn't what I wanted. So, but not sure if the user story is still something we want to have or something else. So
Okay, I think we're out of time. If you have any more questions, please just come to us, add us on LinkedIn, write us a message. We are happy to answer those. Thank you so much.
Thank you.